All right, we are a go. Thanks everyone for joining us today again, and thanks for your patience with our audio issue earlier in the week. Miriam and I definitely wanted to reschedule this, so we're here today doing take 2. This is a Kimbia webinar where we're going to be talking about sustained giving. We have been going through a summer camp series that we launched in July, and we're now in the final week, week 3. And what we want to do today is talk about some tips on sustained giving program maintenance, and also Miriam had a great idea last week to say, hey, let's open up the floor for questions. So on our registration form, many of you submitted your questions, and we're going to be going through and doing sort of a Q&A and answering those. And a lot of them were really great questions around sustainer maintenance and long-term goals and things to do to keep your sustainer program running successfully. So we've got really, really great questions in today, and I'm excited about the content we've got. I'll briefly introduce myself again. I'm Taylor, aka T. Shank. I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Kimbia and have been working in the nonprofit tech space for quite a while in a variety of roles, working on software implementations, project management, writing, marketing, all sorts of things. Miriam, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Miriam. I'm a senior principal at Kimbia, known as Yoda. I've been doing nonprofit fundraising strategy for a very long time. I have a lot of experience in sustaining donors. So if you have questions along the way that you didn't submit or that come up, whether they be telemarketing related, direct mail related, or online related as it pertains to sustainers, please feel free to type them into the question box, and we'll try to get to them towards the end. You can also follow me on Twitter at Miriam Kagan.
Yeah, and quick housekeeping item. Again, we are recording this today, and as always, we will send you a follow-up email that has a link to the recording and the slides that we will post up on our website. So that'll be coming in your inbox probably later today or tomorrow. But again, if you've got questions throughout, Miriam and I really like to have an open floor. So please type them into the question box. We can kind of answer them as we go along, as it makes sense, and also open up the floor at the end for additional questions. Real quickly, just kind of a quick note on what we do here at Kimbia and what Miriam and I work on. We're all about online fundraising, peer-to-peer fundraising, and our tools help organizations do their everyday giving donation forms, honor memorials, sustained giving, event registration, peer-to-peer fundraising, and we also specialize in giving days and crowdfunding. Our focus here is really on the donor experience, and that's something that we've been weaving into the conversation over the course of the summer camp, and around the topic specifically of sustained giving is creating a good donor experience that makes it easy to become a sustained donor, and also something that makes it easy for you as the organization to brand your program well. So a quick recap on what we covered the first couple of weeks. Some of you maybe missed those first 2 weeks. They are online on our website, and I can get you to link to those. Or if you just go to kimbia.com, you can click on resources and go to free fundraising tools, and you'll find a link to all of our past recorded webinars. But with the first week, we kicked it off talking about defining sustainer models. So what are the 2 different main types of sustaining program models you can have? And, defining some pros and cons within those to help you choose what perhaps fits your organization best. Within that, we talked about how to prospect, so how to find good sustained donors, looking at your data, looking at past giving history. Then we talked about conversion pathways, how to take all that data, take what you've got, and then look at, okay, how to actually convert those folks who appear to be good prospects for sustained giving into a sustained giving program. We talked about offering incentives and various things like that. Last week, in week 2, got my fancy little animation. Then we took it a step further and talked about using technology to help you achieve all of those things in a more seamless and automated fashion. So we talked about automating your communication, best practices for online donation forms. We talked about Kimbia Simple Pay and how we make it really easy for people to give again on our platform. And then also talked about just general tips in program management, measuring and tracking yourself. So all of that takes us to today, where we do want to talk about tips for ongoing maintenance. So once the party is, coming to an end in terms of your campaign, once the sun is setting, summer is over, how are you going to keep that campaign going over the long term? Because there are maintenance things that you do need to do as an organization when you're running the sustained giving program. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to get into your questions. And a lot of them, like I said at the beginning, really relate to that theme of maintenance very, very well. And then again, like I said, we're going to open it up for Q&A at the end, but if you do have questions during the rest of the presentation, please chat those in and we will answer those as it makes sense. Okay, so with that, what we're going to do is kind of a moderator and speaker thing today. So I'm going to turn it over to Miriam now to talk about tips for maintenance, and then we'll take it into the Q&A.
Thanks, Taylor. So if you could switch, there you go, to the next slide. Keep in mind that these tips are, Taylor, I'm hearing a bit of an echo, so maybe if you put yourself on mute while I talk. Oh, there you go.
Is that better? It's weird. I put it on mute, and then it made an echo.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it off mute, and I'll just try to be as quiet as a mouse.
Let's try that. So keep in mind, guys, that you may have very different programs. Some of you may be doing direct mail. Some of you may be doing telemarketing. Others might be doing digital only. So these are very general tips. If you have specific questions about your specific program, we can certainly talk to you afterwards or reach out to us. But I made these very high level because, again, programs can be very, very different. So the one thing you definitely want to do is run reports regularly. I know that when folks start gathering sustainers, everyone gets very excited. You start running reports to see how much money you're making, how long they're signing up for, what the average gift is. But there's a lot of other reporting that goes on afterwards, not just things like who is near expire for sustainer credit cards or whose EFT may have come back as declined, but also things like, hey, is somebody giving to you somewhere else? If I'm a sustainer, did I also give you another gift? You should run that in your CRM and see what I'm doing. Am I participating in other events? Maybe I'm a sustainer and I just did a walk with you. All of that can really help you understand who am I to you, and that leads to sustainer upgrades and potentially to a major donor funnel. Keep in mind that sustainers are some of your best major donor prospects. So it's important to run that kind of reporting regularly. That goes into, and we reviewed this in detail in webinar 2. Taylor, if you could chat everyone a link to where everybody can see that on the Kimbia website. You can download the presentation or listen to the recording. Similar with tracking performance, they're kind of two sides of the same puzzle, if you will. You want to see how your sustainers are doing overall, and this is against your goals. Again, we talked about this in webinar 2, but what was the average number of gifts that you guys anticipated having per sustainer every year? Was it 11? Was it 10? How is that going for you? If people are, if you're getting a lower percentage or a lower sustainer frequency, if you're at 8 or 7, why is that? Is your program very direct mail heavy, so you have a lot of vouchers being mailed back to you and those have a lower remittance rate? Understand what's happening so you can figure out how to keep your sustainer program as successful as possible. Also, keep an eye out on technology. Make it as easy as possible for people to become sustainers for you. Just because you've probably gone through a really long process of figuring out what kind of sustainer program are you going to have, how are you going to get people to sign up, what benefits might you have. You probably design donation forms. You put in place sustainer donor management funnels. You're not done. Technology evolves, how people want to interact evolves, and so especially with folks that are going to be giving to you on a monthly basis, it's extra important to keep all of that going. So, for example, we talked in webinar 2 about simple pay and ways for people to convert to sustainers much easier. That's a quickly emerging technology. Make sure you keep an eye on that and understand what you can incorporate into your sustainer maintenance. And finally, keep an ongoing conversation with your sustainers. Who better to tell you what can work for your sustainers and how to convert more people, or what your sustainers who are already in the program would like to hear about from you or get from you than those that are already giving to you that way. So don't just look at these folks as, well, I've signed them up now. Every once in a while, I just need to send them my annual report and maybe a cultivation and maybe a receipt of their giving. Really look to these people as a resource for you. These are people that are the most committed to your organization. They are giving to you on a monthly basis. So they're the best folks to be talking with. So those are some tips for maintaining your sustainer program. These are by no way comprehensive. This isn't everything you could possibly be doing. I think we have another slide, Taylor, is that right?
Yep,
we do.
Right there.
Perfect. And this is more some, communication and messaging maintenance. One of the best things that you can do for yourself, and folks frequently forget to do this because they don't think of this on the end of your donation form provider, and they don't think of this as something that has to be done with the actual sustainers. But having a good relationship with your credit card processor, your payment gateway, your merchant account, can really help with your sustainer program. Help your credit card processor, help your sustainers. What I mean by that is that many credit card processors have, tools that you can pay for that will automatically adjust the credit card expire date. That can help you to keep your sustainers current and not have them opt out of the program by default expiring. They can also do things like do some data maintenance on people who may have multiple households and multiple credit cards. So the better relationship that you have with your credit card provider and regularly checking in with them and asking them what they might be able, what's new with them and with security can really help your sustainer program. Also, make sure to acknowledge anniversaries and milestones. If I've been a sustainer with you for a year, send me something, at least a letter saying thank you. If I've been a sustainer with you for 5 years, what a great time to send me a very special thank you. If you have incentive programs, you don't have to. But if you do have incentive programs, then, what do I get at 5 years, at 6 years? Is there a milestone for the sustainer program itself? Is it now 10 years old and you're celebrating and everybody that's been in it for at least 5 years gets something special, like a special story or access to a special webinar? And lastly, you want to make sure to send an annual giving summary. Now, if you're in direct mail, you're probably sending regular receipts. If you're an email, you probably aren't sending a monthly receipt. If you are, let's talk about that. You probably shouldn't be. But you should make sure to send a special receipt once a year, sometime in January, to show folks how much they've given you for their tax-deductible purposes. And take advantage of that receipt. Make sure you don't just send a receipt that says, here's how much money you gave us. Take the time to thank them. Take the time to tell them about some programs or some upcoming events they can get involved in, and really leverage that relationship. So with that, we have that kind of concludes our ongoing maintenance. Again, there are a lot of things you could be doing. And if you have specific questions, please feel free to reach out to us. And I guess, Taylor, we're going to move to the Q&A.
Yeah, sorry, I went ahead and flipped a little early into that. But this is one of the first questions that came in is about looking at content and kind of following up about communication and messaging. What is some of the best content for sustained giving, letter of support, or email?
That is a great question, and that's what everybody always wants to know, right? Like, how do I convince people to join my sustaining program? And there are several key elements. Keep in mind that don't try to stuff all of these necessarily into one email or one letter. If you're doing a sustainer recruitment series, it should be a 3 or 4 part conversion series. And again, you might have a very specific mission, and you may be doing something very, for example, if you are an organization that specifically tries to sponsor a child, you're going to have a very heavy focus on children that are available to be sponsored, on the outcomes in those children's lives from sponsorship, and the impact on the donors' lives from sponsoring the child, right? But generally speaking, we've come up with some tips of things that you want to include. Explain your sustainer program. I know that this may sound super obvious, but not everybody understands what it is. And explain the benefits to the donor joining. If you have sustainer benefits, make sure to list those out. If you have different levels or clubs, make sure to list those out. And also explain the benefits to you as an organization. That can be a hard argument to make. We know we all want the sustaining donor because, we're going to get the money all the time. But not every organization has that tie of, give us $30, sponsor a child. That's where you really have to think through your sustainer model, and we reviewed that in the first webinar. Feel free to go back and check that out. Also, make it personal. Tie it to as specific an impact as possible. I understand, again, that not everybody can have that, $30, one child, $40, feed a family for a month. But what does this mean to your organization? If you're trying to cure a specific disease, does having more sustaining donors means that you can commit to sponsoring more research regularly? That you're going to set up a research fund and say, hey, if we get, 100,000 sustaining donors, that means we can sponsor $100 million of research a year. So you don't have to be super specific, but try to talk about the impact of the sustaining gift to your organization. If you're a small organization, will that help you keep the lights on? Will you be able to predict your cash flow better and not have to worry every month whether or not you're going to be able to deliver your mission and program? That's an okay impact to state, but try to come up with an actual impact point of the sustaining gift. Also, I strongly suggest focusing on how little it takes every month rather than the annual total. If we say, would you like to give us $10 a month, the person can think, sure, I can spare $10 a month. But if you say, would you like to give us $120 a year, that might make somebody stop. So not that you shouldn't be honest and transparent with people about their giving, but when making the ask, focus on, the relatively little impact to the donor's wallet if you can. If you can share testimonials from other sustainers, that can be really helpful to people like me. If another sustainer can say, this is why I became a sustainer, this is why it was important to me to support the organization, you should too. A great example of organizations that do this really well are NPRs and TPSs during their membership drives. They almost always have a story of somebody saying, I became a sustainer because I love my local station. I watch TV, I listen to my radio, it's changed my life. And if you're like me, stuck in the car, and like to listen to the radio, become a sustainer. So think about, I'm sure, if you don't have any sustainers yet, this might be hard for you, but if you have some sustainers and you're looking to grow that segment, reach out to some folks and see if they'd be willing to share their story. And finally, please remember to always test. All of these best practices are just that. They are what we see tends to work in the industry, but every organization is a unique snowflake. All of your donors are unique to you, so never ever roll out with anything without testing it first, without seeing how it works against a slightly different message and verifying that this is what will work best for you.
Awesome. Okay, next question, Miriam. So far, we have just thanked our monthly donors. We haven't asked for an additional donation or tried to get them to increase their monthly donations. Do you have any tips on this?
Absolutely. And it's great that you guys, first I want to say for whoever asked this question, it's wonderful that you are thanking them. You have already taken the first step in doing something that a lot of folks don't do. Folks sign up sustainers and say, hooray, we have a sustainer, we don't have to do any more work, right? Now we just sit there and take the money. So I'm really glad to hear that you've thanked them. If you have tiers and incentives for your sustainers, make sure to educate them about the benefits of stepping up. So maybe I signed up at the $10 level, at the basic level, and all I get is a thank you and a quarterly newsletter. But was I aware that if I step up to the $25 level, not only will I get, my quarterly newsletter, but I will also get a very special tote bag from you every year. I'm not saying you have to do back-end incentives. That can be, its own sort of black hole that you just, never dig yourself out of. But did I also know that if I step up and become a $25 a month donor instead of $15, I can become a part of a club that's working to not just sponsor a child, but that's working to build schools. So if there are reasons and benefits for me to join the new higher club level, make sure you just spend some time educating people about that. You don't have to ask them to upgrade yet, but just tell them about the different ways to become potentially more involved. Similarly, if you're going to upgrade to a specific program, it's a great way to have people, have the perception of joining a special club. I'll give you a great example. This wasn't a sustaining gift, but you can certainly turn it this way. I worked with a client that was raising money for a large park, for maintaining a very large park in a large city. And they had a very special club where people, if they joined it, specifically their money went towards benches and, names of people went on benches in that park. So if you are thinking of starting up some sort of new program, or even if you just want to take a portion of a program you already have and make sustainers feel like their money, if by upgrading, will go specifically to this program, that's a great idea. Or frankly, if you just want to establish perception levels, a lot of folks do that. I start out at the Junior Achiever Club, and by upgrading, I now become part of the President's Special Circle, right? And I get a special thank you note from the President every year for being a $50 a month sustaining donor. Even those perceived benefits that may not have a direct program tie can be very beneficial as they're perceived by donors. Also, you should absolutely ask for additional gifts at the specific times of year. Now, I know that a lot of folks think, and there is dogma in the industry that says, once you've gotten a sustainer, to become a sustainer, never ask them for a gift again, don't spook them. You kind of promise them that you're not going to bug them. That's absolutely true. I'm not arguing with that. But there are certain types of year and certain campaigns where you should absolutely ask for an additional gift. Ask politely. I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Don't assume. But, for example, at year end, you should absolutely ask them to give another gift. If you're launching a capital campaign and you need to kind of have a quiet phase, or to close out a capital campaign and you need one final push, if you're having a giving day, those are absolutely times when you should be asking them for an additional gift. The last point I'm going to say I am personally not the biggest fan of. I just wanted people to know that this is doable and possible with your credit card vendors. There are rules about ongoing payments, and every 3 to 5 years you can automatically upgrade the credit card account amount being paid by your sustainers by a small amount. You do have to notify them that you're doing that and provide them a way of opting in. As a sustainer myself to certain organizations, that's been done to me a couple of times. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't have an opinion on this. I also don't have data. I will tell you that organizations that do that, most people don't unupgrade. They say to themselves, well, I get it. I've been sustaining for 5 years. Costs go up. But it's it's kind of I don't want to say shady, but it's not the most transparent way of upgrading sustainers. So I'm not telling you not to do it. It's certainly something to be researched, but I did want folks on the phone to be aware that this is something you can do with your credit card provider.
Great. Real quick, I'm just going to check and see if there's any other questions that have come in. It looks like we do. How often should you change the monthly thank you letter? Every month, for example?
Kelly, I see that question coming from you, Kelly, and I think I need some clarification on whether or not you're talking about direct mail or email, because if you have a monthly email going out to your sustainers, I probably wouldn't be sending it every single month. You should be sending them a cultivation maybe email every month telling them about what's going on at your organization, or every couple of months. But, we really don't necessarily want to send them an email every month saying, thank you for your donation, here is how much you gave us. That's a reminder to people every month that they're giving you money, right? And you'll see sustainer cancel rates much higher if you do that than if you don't. So I would strongly urge you to send some sort of communication every month or every 2 months with just, look at all the great stuff that's happening, or we have news, or, volunteer spotlight, to keep yourself on their radar and the great work you're doing. But I probably wouldn't do it in email. I see that you said that you're sending them through the mail. That's probably because you have a voucher program I'm anticipating. Otherwise, I would, again, if these are credit card donors, but they're not giving you through email, you're sending them thank yous through the mail, I would probably send them whatever newsletters you might have and then an annual receipt. But I wouldn't be sending them a monthly thank you mail. You'd probably be saving yourself a lot of money. And Kelly, we can talk about this a little bit more offline, or afterwards. You can reach out to us. But I probably need to know a little bit more about what you guys are doing.
Yeah, great question, Kelly. Keep typing those in if you've got more. All right, let's move on to the next question. Miriam, do you have any tips for moving donors who consistently give to special events, annual, or sustaining donors?
Sure. And again, when we got this question in the forum, it was a little bit vague to me what we mean by special events. That can be a huge category of things. You could be talking about galas or fun, walks or at-home DIY events. So in terms of my tips, they're also a little bit generic. So if whoever asked this question is on the phone, feel free to type us any clarifications, or we can reach out to you later. The first thing that always comes to mind when I hear how can we move event donors, special events, any kind of event, to become an annual or sustaining donor is, is the donor giving to you, the organization, or to someone else who's fundraising for this special event? So Taylor is a co-host of your gala. She bought a table, and she asked me to come and sit at her table, and I gave her $200. So I gave the money to Taylor, not to your organization. And if you're trying to then convert me to any kind of donor, and you're finding that those conversion rates are really, really, really low, and you're scratching your head going, why is that happening? It's because I don't care about you. I care about Taylor. So the first thing you need to do is figure out who those donors are, right? Which donors are giving to you directly. And if I've given to you directly, then you should have a welcome series, welcoming me to the organization, telling me all about what you do. We can talk about more about that kind of offline. We have a ton of webinars on welcome and conversion series guides, and then kind of converting me through that process. But if I gave to Taylor, so if my relationship and affinity isn't to your organization but to the fundraiser, this is when you need to do a lot of legwork. You need to spend time introducing yourself to the donor, talking about your mission, really mission building. Think of this person as a warm prospect, even though you might be treating them as a donor. In my mind, they're a warm prospect to your organization. At this point, there's somebody that's aware of you and knows who you are, but they have no affinity to give to you directly. So the same way that you would spend time in acquisition telling donors all about yourself, your mission, why you're important, what you do, and how their giving will impact your mission, you need to do that with those special event folks that don't have an affinity to you, but rather to the fundraiser. Only after you've done that should you be asking them for a gift, a one-time or a sustaining gift. Also importantly, understand why the donor is giving to the special event. Does the event have a specific theme? So if you are an animal shelter and you had a gala all around foster parents who take in newborn kittens, and that's what I gave to, then it's important to know that about me and to tell me how becoming a sustaining donor or how giving an annual gift to you directly will help, newborn kittens and their foster parents. Use every tidbit of information you have about me from the special event to leverage that to make a more general gift ask.
Yeah, I'll add something. I love that this question came in. I think it's a great question and something that we talk about from our perspective, but also, I'll say from the donor's perspective, I have had personal experiences, good and bad, with this. Going to an office Christmas party, for example, and giving to, a few organizations that they, had donation boxes for at the Christmas party. Some organizations that I've given to in that way have done a great job at cultivating me, sending me a couple of key mail pieces to follow up, for example, because they didn't have my email address, right, because I wrote a check at the Christmas party. But I have definitely also seen this go very, very wrong, where I've been completely inundated with mail from other organizations that I've given to via this method. And it's such a turnoff, I'll say. So I think this is a great question. I'm glad it came in. I think it's very, very important to really cultivate the right way when you're looking at donors who have given you through these types of methods. Oh, we had one more slide on that one too.
Oh, yep.
Bonus.
Excuse me. In that same vein of, special event folks, and Taylor was just talking to this. She wrote a check, and then she was inundated with mail. So one of the things to keep in mind is to look at how is the person giving to the special event. Are they always writing a check, but you keep sending them a piece in the mail that says, here's how you can become, a sustaining donor, or give us a one-time gift via credit card. Here's a link to our online form. Well, no wonder they're not responding, or vice versa. Our folks that are, Taylor is hosting a DIY fundraiser for her birthday. Instead of gifts, she wants people to donate. We all go to her personal page. We all give her money. You get all of our information, and you start sending us a ton of direct mail asking us for money. So, understand how folks are giving in the special event and provide them that same way to give to your annual program or your sustaining program. Also, consider payment schedules. Not everybody may be willing to right away transition to every month gift, but things like different intervals, like sustainer programs don't have to be monthly. They can be quarterly. I can commit to, give a gift to you every 4 months of $50, or even pledge giving. I know pledge giving goes in and out of fashion in our industry, but it's a great way to split up a bigger gift over an interval, and especially for special event folks, if there's folks there that are kind of saying, would you like to commit to us right now? You're here. You've seen the wonderful thing we're doing. Would you like to give us $500? And the person goes, that's a lot of money. You can say, well, sure, that's a lot of money, but you can split it up into 5 payments of $100 over the next year. Oh, really? Okay, I'll do that. That seems more manageable. So think about ways to really meet the donors where they're at, I think is what this slide was for.
All right, next question. I think this follows along really well after my example of the Christmas party. But Miriam, do you have any recommendations on how you do the additional ask at year end?
Absolutely, and this is probably my favorite topic because year end is such a fruitful time for nonprofits, right? We raise a ton of money even when we're not trying. So even if you just have a donation form up and you're not doing much, you probably see a ton of money roll in on December 31st compared to how much you usually make. And if you try a little, you see that payoff in gangbusters, and if you try really hard, then I imagine that the last 5 days of the year are probably just as big as almost the rest of your year. So, yes, you should be asking at year end for your sustainers, but you should absolutely be segmenting them out. Please don't just dump them into your general email stream or your general fundraising direct mail letter and just be like, okay, I've included them like Miriam said, and then get a bunch of angry phone calls because, they need to be treated differently. So segment. Make sure that you acknowledge that you understand that they're sustainers. The first thing you should do is thank them. You say, thank you so much for being a sustainer. We know you're a sustainer. But we have this, extra opportunity at the end of the year because, not nonprofit, tax deductions and things like that. We're trying to either close out our year really strong, or we're trying to accomplish something for next year. If you have a goal, make sure to mention that. If you have another sustainer who maybe stepped up last year at the end of the year and wanted to give you that extra gift, awesome, right? And that's how you ask them for the gift. Never just dump them into that really urgent, really strong email stream that says, year-end is coming, give us a gift. You can use the majority of that copy, but you shouldn't start out with that really strong push. Also, you need to set expectations. So maybe right now I'm giving you $15 a month, but at the end of the year, you're asking me for a one-time gift. So if I click through your email and I land on a form, it should be your year-end one-time form. It shouldn't give us another $15 gift. Keep in mind that, you need to be setting different gift expectations, and year-end is a time where you really need to push on that ask array. Bonus tip for those of you on the phone that has nothing to do with sustainers: if you are not changing your ask array on your general donation form at year-end, you're losing money. If you look at your data at year-end, you'll notice that your average gift goes up pretty significantly compared to non-year-end. You're getting a lot of probably bigger gifts than you usually do. Your ask array signals expectations to donors of how much you expect them to give. So that's a great time of year to change that ask array temporarily to signal the higher giving expectations. So that was a random aside, but also, another great tactic is to ask donors to match their year-round gifts. So if I'm giving you $10 a year, I'm a $120 a year donor. Ask me at year-end to match that giving by giving you another $120. Again, test this tactic. Don't just roll it out to everyone. But if you see it being pretty successful, then you know that that's something to try, and a great way to double the giving from some of your sustaining donors. By no means will all of them do this. And some of them might double it. Some of them might give you a smaller gift, but if you don't ask, you don't get. The other thing to try at year-end is if you have any incentive funds. A lot of you guys are probably doing year-end campaigns that say things like, between now and the end of the year, your money will be doubled because we have a generous sponsor who has stepped up to match all the money so we can meet our year-end goal. Try to see if you can carve out a little bit of that money just for sustainers and say, we have somebody that really is just so impressed with our sustaining donors and so grateful for what you guys do and for the impact that you've made on our organization. They have offered to match $5,000 of any additional gifts we get from our sustainers between now and the end of the year. That's a great way to make your sustainers feel special and to make them feel like their money is going even further. So those are some of Miriam's top tips on how to ask at year-end. By no means are they, again, there are many things you could also try and do, but these are some general best practices and to get you guys thinking about year-end and sustainers.
Great. Okay, next question, Miriam. On the topic of moving sustainers to ACH transactions, how do we motivate sustained giving in direct mail letters that we're sending?
Okay. So this was also a question that we got that was kind of a bit of a vague question to me because I wasn't really sure if we were saying, do we already have sustainers who are paying via checks and we want to move them to ACH, and how do we do that? Or how do we get people in direct mail to become sustainers, right? And we want them to become sustainers via ACH. So I answered this kind of coming from both perspectives on this. And the first thing I wanted to say is that ACH, or some of you may know it as EFT, basically is paying directly out of the bank account every month. It's not just for direct mail. It is the ultimate method by which you want people giving you money. And the reason I say that is that bank accounts, people tend to switch them the least. They don't expire like credit cards. So if you can get somebody on the hook to become a sustaining donor for you via their bank account, you're really good to go with that person. Okay. And traditionally, people have recruited folks to give via ACH, either via the phone or sometimes via mail. Increasingly, people are doing it online. But I just wanted to make sure folks on the phone were aware this is not just a direct mail method. To try to help do this in direct mail, mail an ACH sign-up form with the direct mail piece to be sent back to you. So what a lot of folks do is they say, would you like to become a sustainer? Yes. Check this box. I check the box. I mail it back to you. You get the box. Somebody in your processing facility processes it, mails me a form that I have to attach my check to and fill out all this stuff. I mail it back. It's like a month-long process. And then finally it becomes a payment. Why not just mail the form as part of the ask? I know that folks are thinking that's another piece of paper I might have to add. That might cost me another 10 cents a piece. But, you know, in terms of getting somebody to sign up to become an EFT sustainer for you, that should be worth it. Again, test this to a small portion of your population. If it works, roll it out. Also, talk about how easy it is to sign up online through EFT to become a sustainer to an organization. I'm not saying that they have to do this through your online form specifically. People can go into their online bill pay and set up a monthly payment to you, for example, and there's no reason that you can't include some basic instructions on either how to do this through your form if you have EFT, or frankly some basic practices on how to do it for online bill pay. Even things like where to find your routing number and your bank account number with a little picture of a check can go a long way in helping people feel comfortable that they can do this by themselves online. Again, adding the insert might cost you a penny or two into a direct mail piece, but it will be worth it if you get sustainers. Another thing that I wanted to say here on the topic of direct is that direct mail is hands down the hardest way to get sustaining donors unless you are one of those one-to-one organizations where, you know, send us $30, sponsor a child. If you don't have that direct impact very clearly spelled out, you are going to have a really hard time signing up sustainers to get direct mail. Not to say that you can't, but compared to all the other methods of doing it, the cost to revenue ratio on this is relatively low. So some things, if you are set on doing this via direct mail, that you do to try to improve that. Even if you're sending the ask in direct mail, provide all possible ways to become a sustainer in that direct mail piece. Have a URL to how to become a sustainer online. Include a phone number that folks can call, that they can call up and say, I want to be a sustainer, let me read you my credit card number. Make sure to include an address to first check to. So if a donor can become a sustainer with you via carrier pigeon, make sure that you include where that carrier pigeon is and how to go get them in that direct mail piece. Allow them every possible way to become a sustainer with you. Provide that information. Also, always make sure to add a sustainer ask into the acknowledgments that you're sending for one-time gifts. This is the most basic sustainer practice of direct mail, to include an insert saying, you just gave us a gift, wonderful, now would you like to become a sustainer? That may seem counterintuitive, but especially in direct mail, the best indicator of getting a second gift is proximity to the first gift. So by that logic, if the second ask is the most likely to get asked, then have that second ask be a sustaining ask. Incentivize. Try sustaining giving with better incentives than for one-time gifts. For those of you that have any sort of clubs, or again, if you send people tchotchkes or anything like that, make sure the ones for your sustaining ask in direct mail are better than those for your one-time gifts. If you do appeals, and maybe you mail out sometimes postcards, or greeting cards, or you offer something on the back end for a gift of a certain size, make sure the one for sustainers is more appealing than for non-sustainers. Also, think about an invitation-style direct mail piece to join a special club, for example. Make it look personalized, make it look like real handwriting. Anything you can do to make people feel like they're joining something very special, and you've asked them to join it personally, even if it's in the mass mailing. And finally, make sure to follow up with print sustainer newsletters. If I've joined with you via direct mail, I want to hear how things are going on via direct mail. So make sure you have a plan for keeping your sustainers, abreast of what's going on a couple times a year, so that every time they get that voucher in the mail for sending you a check, or if you've managed to sign them up via ACH, if they're looking at their monthly payments on bill pay and they're wondering who this payment is to, they remember it's for the wonderful work.
All right. And with that was the last question that we had received from the registration that we saw, but we want to just open up the floor for questions as well right now. If you've got any other questions you'd like to pick our brains on, please type those in now.
Oh, and Taylor, I just thought of one more thing on the whole ACH issue.
Of course.
You have sustainers who are paying you via, say, monthly vouchers that you're having to mail them. Or even if you have credit card sustainers that you'd like to transition to ACH, one of the best things that you can do is invest in a calling campaign. Call them up directly and ask them to move to ACH. It's a little bit expensive, but that personal touch, your conversion rates are going to be significantly higher. And if you believe that that's going to make you a lot more money, so if your average for, a year on your sustainers via credit card is 9 gifts because there's no fails and cancels, and on EFT your average is 11.2. So basically you're getting an additional, 2 gifts per person if you transition them to EFT, and those additional 2 gifts equal $50 to you. And calling these people, is an average cost of $4 a person. Well, you might even out with extra money in the bank. So consider a call campaign, especially for higher dollar sustainers, to transition them to EFT. That was it.
All right. Very good. Well, we'll give some time. Again, we'll hang on the line if questions come in. In the meantime, I'll go ahead and do just sort of the final housekeeping items. So I didn't update this slide since Wednesday, which was the night. But if you are at all interested in talking to us more about our platform or how we can help you more or how you can talk to someone like Miriam more, let us know. We're actually doing a webinar, another one next Wednesday, where we're going to be actually going through and showing off the Kimbia platform and how people use it and how our clients are successful with using it for online donations and online fundraising. So check that out. It is up on our website. If you go to kimbia.com/demo, you can sign up for that. It's kimbia.com/demo. Of course, always follow us on Twitter at Kimbia Webinars, at Kimbia Inc., Miriam Kagan, and T. Shank Cycles. And if you want to, again, just sign up in general, let's say that the 17th doesn't work for you, go to showmekimbia.com and you can sign up for a demo, and we'll just reach out to you personally and do a one-on-one conversation with you. So please reach out if you've got any questions. One other thing that we started doing recently is we started doing a new column called Dear Kim, and we have an email inbox for Kim, and Kim answers all of your fundraising questions. So questions like what we received for the webinar today, we answer through our Dear Kim column. So if you have anything that you think about later or that comes to you later, please email Kim at kimbia.com, and we might feature your question on our blog, on our Dear Kim blog. Please note that we keep all of your information private. We don't post anything about your name or anything like that. It's all completely anonymous, kind of like a Dear Abby. So if you're interested in putting your questions out there for us to answer on our Dear Kim piece, then please do that, Kim at kimbia.com. And with that, I don't see any other questions that have come in through the question box. I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and thank you again for your patience with the audio issues we had earlier in the week, and for still joining us today. We really appreciate your time, and we hope this was helpful. If you've got any questions, again, like I said, just email Kim at kimbia.com, and Miriam and I and our team will either be in touch with you directly or answer your questions on that blog.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Well, with that, I'm going to call it a wrap. And again, really appreciate your time today. Thanks for joining us. Bye.